1066, the fateful year of the Battle of Hastings and then the Norman invasion of England. But here in London, is there anything left from the 11th and the 12th centuries? I'm Katie Wignall, a London tour guide, and in this video I want to show you the visible remains from the Norman period that we can still find in London today. After winning the Battle of Hastings, William the Conqueror needs to head to London to make sure everyone agrees he is the rightful King of England. And what better place to send a message than in Westminster Abbey? Westminster Abbey is the royal church, and it's still here today that kings and queens have their coronations. But for William the Conqueror, his coronation wasn't in this abbey, but an earlier one built in the 11th century under Edward the Confessor. Amazingly, there is still a room inside the abbey dating back to the 11th century that we can still enter today. This is the Pyx Chamber inside Westminster Abbey, probably the oldest room in London. The name is derived from these wooden chests called pyx, which held gold and silver coins. It was built in the years just before the Norman conquest, but it has defining Norman characteristics like the thick columns and round arches. In the 11th century, the monks had their dormitory above this room, so it was one of the most secure places in the abbey, also seen through these double set of hefty doors. After William's coronation, he set about displaying his strength through architecture, building a royal palace just on the edge of the City of London. This still survives today, but we know it as the Tower of London. Just like Westminster Abbey, the tower has changed a lot over the centuries, but the central white tower, this one shaped a bit like a sandcastle, is the oldest part, constructed between 1076 and 1101. From the outside, you can see this bulging shape, and it's a clue to what's hiding inside. One of the most atmospheric parts of the tower is this chapel of St. John the Evangelist. It's the oldest surviving Anglo-Norman royal chapel. Standing inside here, you can well imagine the kings of England kneeling silently in prayer. Again, we see the thicker columns and round arches, typical of the Norman style. Today, it's a serene space of plain white, but in the 11th century, it would have been richly coloured and lavishly decorated. As well as the Tower of London, the Normans built two prestigious churches in the City of London. One was a repair of St. Paul's Cathedral, although none of that survives, and the other was a church called St. Mary Archibus, or St. Mary of the Arches. Today, we know it as St. Mary le Bow. There was probably an earlier Saxon church here, but the Norman one was founded around 1080. Like many old churches in the City of London, St. Mary le Bow has been rebuilt many times, the most recently after damage in the Second World War. But just like All Hallows in the city, we head down into the crypt and we can find the oldest parts. So this has been turned now into a rather lovely wine bar, but we are standing in an 11th century crypt, and you can see the Norman arches, these really rounded ones, and the columns in keeping with the Norman style. It's these round or bow-shaped arches that give us the surviving name St. Mary le Bow. This crypt has survived a tornado in 1091, the Great Fire in 1666, and an incendiary bomb in May 1941. Something to ponder as you sip a glass of wine here today. Beyond the City of London walls, there were much larger churches, often monastic institutions, and one of the most famous was this one, St. Bartholomew the Great. It had been founded in 1123 by a courtier to King Henry I, Prior Rahir. The interior of St. Bartholomew the Great is astonishing. Unlike many other London churches, there's still a lot of original stonework here, including the chancel and the thick columns with their classic Norman round arches. As you can imagine, with a building this old, there's been a lot of changes. So they have quite a helpful colour-coded map showing you just how many different eras of architecture there are in this one building. As mentioned, the church was founded by Rahia, a courtier to King Henry I. Henry was the son of William the Conqueror, and in 1120 he faced one of the worst crises of his reign. It was known as the White Ship Disaster, this fateful shipwreck that drowned 300 noblemen, including Henry's only legitimate male heir. As a member of the court, Rahir would have seen the fallout of this, and it's why he made a pilgrimage to Rome. On the way, he was struck down by disease, probably malaria, but thankfully St. Bartholomew appeared to him, promising to heal him as long as he built a church and a hospital dedicated to the saint in Smithfield. St. Bartholomew's Hospital nearby is still a working hospital, the oldest in the UK, although there's nothing of the original Norman building that survives. Even further afield, north of King's Cross Station today, we can find some surviving parts of another church, fittingly called St. Pancras Old Church. There are claims that this church dates all the way back to the 4th century AD, and while it might be tricky to prove that through archaeological evidence, certainly there's been a place of worship here for a number of years, and inside we can see that the core of the building dates back to the 11th century. Once inside, this patch of wall left unplastered dates back to the 11th century. Has the church been heavily restored? Sure, but is it a place where you step inside and it feels hugely atmospheric? And it's somewhere that Londoners since the 11th century have continually visited? Absolutely, and I think it's quite magical. The Norman period comes to an end with the accession in 1154 of King Henry II, our first Plantagenet king. But for London, we enter what we know as the medieval period, and there's plenty to discover in our next video. Make sure you subscribe to join the next instalment of What's Left of London's History.